All right, we are the Varsity Voices, and we are here finally with the finals, Dan, the state championships, and some really, really good games. A little bit of chatter, I would say. Because you and I talked about. So the Chicago Catholic League had 6 teams in 5 classes, and they won 5 state championships, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yes. And the only reason they didn't win 6 is because two of the CCL teams played each other. So there's some people really happy out there. And there's some that are not so happy, right?
Yeah, remember a previous episode, I think I said that maybe there'll be phone calls for sure, but maybe not so many. Whoa. I think there's going to be a lot. I think there's been phone calls made already to the IHSA, and any reps who were at those games may have gotten an earful in the parking lot if people knew who they were. I think there's a reason they stay under the radar.
Yeah, and there was a one of the things I thought about him when I was looking at some of the stories, some of the posts out there on X and Facebook was that so you probably can't just say it's the Chicago Catholic League. You have to say it's private schools, right? Because you look at Belleville Althoff 1A, you look at Chicago Christian 2A. Private schools who just dominated, right? Yeah. So it's not just the Catholic League, it's private school leagues, and there's no way of getting around it, Dan. They did dominate in the they championship games. Yeah,
they did, and it's for as talented as a lot of these teams were. I do see it. I understand it. That all the issues that we'll go over on another episode. Tonight we want to celebrate the champions, and it's about the players. But the schedule, the fact that they are used to playing these high level teams week in and week out. A team like Montini that had to play Marist and had to play Fenwick and had to play. I'm trying to think of. If they played, I don't know if they played Naz, but they're just the schedule in general. The white division. It was knockdown drag out, and that has an effect. And that's why coaches want practices to simulate game speed as much as possible. Because if you've got good people going against good people at practice, you are going to get better. And so that's the same thing for the week in and week out on game night. If you are going against good people, you know what it takes. And when you review film, this is what we have got to do better against good teams. Well, then when you play a team that might not be as talented as what you face week in and week out, I think that shows. And I think it showed yesterday and Friday.
Yeah, I think it did too. I'm with you, Dan. I don't want to take anything away from what the Chicago Catholic League was able to do in their games and winning state championships. I want to celebrate it because, it was not an easy road for any of them. They came through a really tough regular season schedule, plus, a tough playoff schedule too. And they came out on top. They came out on top because they worked extremely hard. They played very well. They have outstanding players, but I was thinking about it and I thought, what? They have outstanding teams. It's not just individual players. It's the teams. And, there's more to it than just having, 3-4 stars on, both sides of the ball. You've got to come together as a team, and play well that way in order to really come away with the state championship. And, I would argue that point to the death with anybody saying that, it is a team effort these teams that have won the state championship, sure, they've got really good players. They've got really talented players, but, that alone does not get you over the top. Coming together as a team is what gets you over the top.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not an August to November proposition, right? The weight room's open for everybody. Right. All year round, and I know there's a lot of multi-sport athletes, but there's the coming together, like you said, a team, and there's the flip side of the, let's since we're Catholic League centric, let's talk about that. You think IC feels like they could have done some damage in 3A?
Yeah.
You think Providence feels like they could have done some damage in 6A? And so, there's a flip side. So I mean, and St. Ignatius could have made some noise in 8A. So there's they won the Prep Bowl. So beat a 12-1 young team. So they are there is a flip side that people don't necessarily talk about. At least with the Chicago Catholic League, I don't know enough about the schedule that downstate. Private programs,
private schools,
states out west. Yeah. I don't know enough about their conferences to know what their schedule's like, but I think there is a flip side that can be argued for the Catholic League and some of the teams that don't end up getting in. Carmel, another one, really good team
for sure,
right?
Would have made some noise in 4A, right? For sure, I think.
Yeah.
But okay, but I agree with you, Dan. I want to celebrate the teams here that especially in the Chicago Catholic League that won some state championships, and let's talk about those, right? And we'll save a future episode for some of the other things, and we'll talk about that in detail for sure. Because you and I both have some really good ideas that I think the IHSA should consider.
Like, follow, and subscribe, and we'll share them with you.
Yes, for sure. And make sure you listen to our future episodes. All right, let's go right away to what I think maybe was the best game over Friday and Saturday.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Dan, and it was Nazareth versus versus Joliet Catholic, right?
Yes.
The 5A state championship game. And Dan, when I was looking at this, I watched the game, right? And then I looked at some of the analysis afterwards. I thought, this turned out exactly the way you and I thought it was going to. We thought Nazareth, with their talent, was going to be able to score and score quickly, which they did. We thought turnovers, which Nazareth has been really good at over the course of the year, we're gonna make a difference in this game, and they did. We thought Joliet Catholic was gonna, just try and pound the ball, move it, 3, 4, 5, 6 yards at a crack, running the ball, and scoring touchdowns, which they did. So the game turned out exactly the way I thought it might, and I think you too. And it really came down to the last, the last play of the game, the last 30 seconds of the game.
Yeah, it was exactly what you want out of a state final game. It was clearly the game that looking back at it, you hang a star on that one and say, that was the top game of the weekend. And there were some great moments and big plays and critical things that happened. How about Naz with a fake punt in the first quarter from essentially their own goal line? They ran that fake punt to extend the drive. I felt like Joliet Catholic had I thought, gosh, these teams may score each time they have the ball. And sure enough, it came down to a turnover that gave Naz that 2 touchdown lead. Joliet Catholic, early turnover, fumble that Naz got the ball back, and so it was. There were things that happened. There was great plays. we saw dogs of the week. Garrett Reese caused a fumble. Great play. The offensive line from Joliet Catholic doing its thing. Naz never getting rattled. Joe, there was, and we're gonna have to take a segment here and talk about the officiating, but they didn't care about penalties that are called. You never ever see Nazareth look rattled, no matter what it is. 3rd and 35, yeah, we're fine. Just really just a lot of impressive play. I feel like the experience. Joliet Catholic was experienced too, but I felt like it really showed for Naz. Logan Malachuk is unbelievable. His accuracy is just outstanding. Receiving core that is amazing. So it was a great game, a lot of fun. Like you said, came down to the wire. With the 2-point conversion. Now, coaches will always say it didn't come down to that. They had plenty of opportunities. They could look all the way back in the first quarter at the fumble where Naz got the ball back and stopped a drive that Joliet Catholic was just rolling on. So it was everything you'd want in a state final game. Congratulations to Nazareth. That's a three-peat. How would you like to have that experience as a high school football player?
Oh, it'd be awesome.
4 years, with three state championships. Pretty incredible.
One of the things I liked in this game, Dan, was Coach Racky for Nazareth. And by the way, the final score was 29-27, Naz over Joliet Catholic. But you know what? Coach Racky left nothing in his playbook. Right. I mean, he was willing to take risk after risk, knowing that this was a state championship game. And, you can tell that they practiced some of the things that they did, especially, the punter / kicker, Frankie Nichols.
Yeah.
I mean, he was all the way at the back line of the end zone, and they run a fake punt. And he runs it out 25 yards for a first down. I mean, that takes balls, right? I think,
yes,
from a coaching standpoint. I mean, to call that, and it worked. I mean, Gabe Kaminsky, right, who we talk about all the time, and on defense, he ends up scoring a touchdown. He sneaks out in the middle. I think they had him lined up at tight end. Sneaks out in the middle, and he scores a touchdown for him, big touchdown at the time. So it was just kind of the little things like that Coach Racky was willing to do and take some risks, which I think made a huge difference in this game.
Yeah, and they play with a lot of confidence. They play like they've won before. Like you said, the risks that they're willing to take, the plays that they make. The passing game that was just on point yesterday. I mean, there were a couple deep balls that were just out of the reach of Penley and Walker, but man, they had big games, and they all kind of they're these explosive guys that all know their job, and they all do their job really, really well. Frankie Nichols also threw the 2-point conversion. So, just unbelievable that how they came. They do the little things that help you win games.
Yeah, and I say Coach Racky has a big set. Logan Malachuk does as well. I mean, I counted, I think, 5 or 6 plays over the course of the game where he was deep in his own end zone, Dan, and he's launching the ball 40 to 50 yards downfield, to either Walker or Jake Sestone. I thought, that takes a lot for, these kids to have that kind of confidence in not only their own talent, but the talent of the players that they're playing with. And, I felt like Logan Malachuk, now he's an all-stater, right? And he deserves to be, for sure. I mean, the kid's an outstanding player. I don't know where he's going to college, but, we've talked about this in some of the previous episodes. I would take this kid in a heartbeat, Logan Malachek, for not only his talent, but for the fortitude and the grit and all of that
Yeah.
he brings to the game.
Yeah, I like quarterbacks with moxie.
Yes,
And
he's got it.
and he's got it. He's got it by the wheelbarrow load. He's grown with the program. Just has always been super competitive and plays his heart out and gives his all. Yeah, it just was a great highlight finish for all those guys at Nazareth.
Yeah. So congrats to Nazareth. Also congrats to Joliet Catholic, Dan.
For sure.
Some outstanding performances this year. They came through a tough schedule as well. I mean, you got to give kudos to their running backs, Larry Stringham, also Nate McGreeny, who had excellent years. Larry Stringham, I think, was All-Stater. Their quarterback, who I think, kind of, Lucas Similek, he kind of pushed the boundaries of himself a little bit this year and, throwing some touchdown passes, kind of stepping out a little bit. So I give Joliet Catholic a ton of credit here as well. They had an outstanding season and, unfortunately, they came up against a Nazareth team who was just really on point. But, that doesn't take anything away from Joliet Catholic.
Yeah, you mentioned the running backs, Vince Bremner too. Just another
Bremner.
one. They just they had a stable. We talked about Naz's wide receivers. Joliet Catholic's running backs were just incredible the entire year. So did exactly what Joliet Catholic running backs should do. So it was a great game for two great teams. Fortunate for us, as fans, that we get to watch that game and kind of, we're looking at the brackets early on and thought that we might be able to point to these two teams, meeting in the finals, and sure enough, and it was everything we hoped for.
It was, and so again, congrats to Nazareth and. Great season as well to Joliet Catholic. And let's move on to the 4A game, Dan. And this was DePaul Prep and Mount Zion. DePaul Prep with a 40-6. You could probably call this a rout over Mount Zion. And one of the things, Dan, that I noticed or I thought about as I was watching some of this game is, DePaul Prep didn't change a thing over what they did over the course of the year. They relied on their offense, to get them big plays with Nick Martinez, their running back, who I think had over 100 yards, Juju Rodriguez. He passed for over 146 yards, I think. And, they utilized all their weapons. They utilized, Martinez. They utilized Nathan Hathcote as well. He had 91 rushing yards. They got the ball to Braden Peavy. So all the things that DePaul Prep did over the course of the year to make them successful, they built on, and they took the next step here in this state championship game, and they come away with their first state championship since I think 1980 when they were Gordon Tech. Dan.
Wow! Yeah, that was great, and congrats to Coach Passarella and the guys over there. They did a great job. I felt like this didn't feel like a traditional blowout where one team just dominates another. They just kind of steadily pulled away and did a really good job of taking Mount Zion out of their game. They were all over. Braden Trimble, and he made a couple plays, but nothing like he was used to. I felt like there was some hard hitting on the side of DePaul that was frustrating for Mount Zion. They weren't necessarily able to get J.C. Anderson. They were able to limit him defensively, and Zion used him a little bit, offensively, but congrats to DePaul for making it really difficult for Mount Zion to do what they wanted to do on a regular basis. I liked what the defensive ends, Aiden Cassette and Michael Casper were doing. They used those guys in the heavy formation on the offensive side of the ball, to open up some holes. They were able to get a running game going. So it kind of played out. I don't know if we said this, but it kind of played out how I think I thought it was going to, where I thought Mount Zion would have a hard time stopping DePaul Prep consistently, and DePaul Prep might be able to really take away what Mount Zion wanted to do on offense. So, kudos to them. They had a great run. They were able to, like I said, kind of pull away for as the game went on, and put them on their heels. They just put Mount Zion on their heels the whole game.
They did. And I want to give congrats to DePaul Prep as well, and Coach Passarella. What some of the things that I looked at and I read over the course of the last couple of days about, and I'm maybe had not heard this earlier in the year, and we interviewed Coach Passarella, but one of the things that, all of their kids said, and they agreed at the beginning of the year, beginning of the season, was that, success for them was a state championship. And they did whatever they needed to do over the course of the year to make that happen. I mean, they came through another, Chicago Catholic League team that came through a really tough regular season schedule, was battle tested, came into the playoffs, was ready to go, and they took care of business. And I don't think they thought maybe they would get this far. Maybe the coach didn't think they would get this far. But the kids for sure, had this as a goal for them, starting out at the beginning of the year, and they made it happen. So, congrats to them for sure.
Yeah, they and people were calling it a Cinderella run. I didn't necessarily see it like that, because, and again, maybe that's because from our vantage point, we saw the schedule they played. They had to play Loyola. They didn't win their division, so it was not easy for them to get where it was, but they were still a really good team. Had some great victories. They beat St. Francis, and they had some great moments, and didn't have had to come up and play Coal City in the semis. So it was not necessarily the easiest road, but I never felt like they were a true Cinderella that people didn't think was going to be there. We knew in the summer after one conversation with the coach that this was a generational team, and so I think Mount Zion probably felt the same way, and they were, and they should get all the credit in the world for making it as far as they did. So it was great to see, and it really was a culmination of a great effort that, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, it's all year round for these guys. So So congrats to those guys on winning the 4A title.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so let's go to 3A, and this was Montini and Monticello, the Big Mountain versus the Little Mountain, Dan.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And Montini took care of business in this game, and they come out with a 49-8 win over Monticello. One of the things that I was thinking about here, Dan, was, we talked about in maybe mid-season, towards the end of the regular season, that, Montini's offense was going to have to step up a bit. We know their defense is outstanding, and they were again here in this game. But I really think the last 2 or maybe 3 games of the playoffs, including the state championship, the offense was just unstoppable. They
Yeah.
really really stepped up, right? And you can tell it in the scores that they were able to put up, and they were not able to do that in some of the games during the regular season. But I felt like they really came into their own, as the season went on, and really as they got into the playoffs. So, talking about a team that's peaking at the right time, I think Montini and specifically their offense, they definitely did that over the last several games.
Yeah, they were too physical up front on both sides of the ball, and it's funny we joked about Big Mountain versus Little Mountain, and one thing I noticed right away, Doug Mateo and J.C. Hayes exerted their dominance over the Monticello offensive line right away.
Yep,
They
right
were
away.
they made Mount Zion one dimensional. It really limited them in the passing game where they had a little bit of success, but from early on in that game, uh, it was clear that Monticello was going to have to be perfect in order to compete, and their defense was just not able to hold up to the physicality of Montini, where I think Montini was more physical at every single position.
Yep, I
And
agree.
yeah, Peterson running for 134 yards, they just couldn't stop him. They could not tackle him. And we saw the key. I was at the Byron game, and Byron did a great job of not letting him get going. He's one of those backs that if you let him get to the line of scrimmage, you've got a big problem.
Yeah.
But Byron was able to control that for the most part. But Monticello was not able to control that at all, and Montini dominated from pretty much from the opening whistle, and it looked like Monticello knew pretty quickly that they were in for a long day.
Yeah, and the one thing I liked about this game, and I think again, as their offense, Montini's offense has gotten better and better over the course of the year, was the way that Israel Abrams kind of took control. He threw for 225 yards, but the one thing I liked was how he spread the ball around, Dan.
Yeah.
Moved it to several different receivers, as Harkins as well as Florio. Also getting Peterson involved in the receiving game. I think he had 50 receiving yards as well as 134 rushing yards. So I think they've really hit on something. I think Izzy Abrams is he's only a sophomore, which we talked about, and I think he's grown over the last 3 or 4 games here, and he is going to be a problem for the next 2 years in the Chicago Catholic League for anybody that plays them.
Yeah, as his frame fills out, and he's already got the instincts to carry the football. He gives a good dead leg move, and gets guys to makes him miss. He'll be able to lower his shoulder, in a year or two, and he won't have to worry about a dead leg, move. He will be the hammer, not the nail, and
Right.
and combined with the strength of his arm, and how well he throws the football, he's got a bright future, and so does Montini. With him there, they look out for them, in the following years.
Yeah, I know Montini is fairly senior heavy
Right. Good
this
class.
year.
Yeah.
Good, really good class. On especially on defense when you look at some of their players on defense and who they've got. And a lot of those guys are going to go on and play some really good college football, I'm sure. But when you've got somebody like Abrams to build around, I think that bodes well for you going forward. So I think I'm not going to. I'm not going to cry any tears for Montini that they've got a bunch of seniors this year graduating. Yeah.
Yeah. Nope. They congratulations. They did a great job. They completely earned it. They did not have an easy road at all. So it was great to see Coach Bukowski, great guy, really does an outstanding job with this team, and is he's a coach's coach. You know,
He is. Yeah.
he is a guy that lives and breathes this every day and moves from sport to sport, and so it's very, very cool to see. He's received more awards recently, and has earned every one of them. So congratulations to Coach Bukowski, the staff, and the team.
Yeah, and I think one more thing on Coach Bukowski, and congratulations to him. I think he might be the first head coach in Illinois who's won 3 state titles as a head coach in 3 different sports, Dan. So he's won one now in football. He won one, maybe more than one, I'm not sure, in wrestling, because he's the head wrestling coach. And he won one as the girls softball coach as well. So I think now he's hit the trifecta. And, I think the next stop for him is probably Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah. He's a winner, right? I think we can finally call him a winner. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure, maybe he'll have something to say about that. But, we won't talk to him again probably till next summer or something, right? So, yeah. All right, so let's go to, let's see, we've covered that. Let's go to the 7A game, and this was Mount Carmel and Batavia. Mount Carmel comes out on top in this, as state champs. Congrats to them. They, it's a three-peat for Mount Carmel, Dan, and they won 55-34 over Batavia, and they take over sole possession of the record for the number of state championships in the state of Illinois. They've got 16. Can you believe that?
I know. I mean, 16 in. I don't know if that's saying anything before 1974 or since 1974. If they won 16 out of 50, that's a ridiculous. That's
crazy.
30%. They're winning. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. You know what else that I found? The other stat here was Jack Elliott, the outstanding quarterback for Mount Carmel, he broke the 7A state championship record for touchdowns scored in a game with 7. You know who held that record prior to Jack Elliott?
Who?
Justin Lynch. The the coach for Mount Carmel, right? So Elliott breaks his coach's record, right? And we know how good Justin Lynch was too. But Jack Elliott, I've just got to give a ton of kudos to, and I know everybody's talking about he's the best player in the state. I don't know how you could argue against that, Dan. The things that he is able to do, not only can he, score and, do damage running the ball, but passing the ball as well. I mean, he's got some talent around him, and he would, and he freely admits that, Cooper Lehman, he had a touchdown reception. Quentin Burrell had 2 touchdown receptions here. Elliott ran for a couple of more, threw for another one to Stephen Winkler. So Jack Elliott is just the real deal going to Vanderbilt. They're getting a good one. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So what do you think, Dan? Tell me.
Yeah. I wish he was staying locally. He could find a nice academic institution really close by.
He could. He could have an excellent career somewhere right down, on the lakefront, new stadium being built, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Don't get me started on that. But,
all right, I won't.
Yeah, like Jordan Lynch said, that it's their 16th, 3 in a row for him. It's really special for these kids, and now they can say they've got more state championships than anyone else. And he's unbelievable. He's, and I watched, I don't know if I saw every game, but there are some players out there that are really good. The running back for Althoff, holy cow, is he good?
Yes.
Couple guys. I mean, couple guys at every position on East St. Louis are unbelievable.
There's a kid from Chicago Christian who had almost, he had over 500 yards total offense by himself.
Yeah,
Damn.
the receivers on Geneva, my goodness, man. So anyway, a lot of good players out there. But yes, Elliott is he's not only super talented, he's got a great arm. He's got a great arm. He's incredibly accurate. He is fast. When he decides to run, you can't sleep on his speed because he runs right by people, outruns those angles. He is the whole package. And what makes him, to me, the top player in the state is his will. He literally puts it. You can see him kind of put a team on his back, and that wasn't a blowout either. I mean, that the final score shows like it was, but Batavia hung in there. They've got an up and coming quarterback that is unbelievable as well. Your guy Vander Lutgaren.
Yeah, and, did I have it right, Dan? The pronunciation. I think I might have been. I was a tiny bit off.
You were definitely hitting the I in the Lutgaren. You were saying Luitgaren.
Luitgaren. So you only owe me $25, not $50.
All right. Yes. Yeah. So, there's. I mean, the quarterbacks in this state, Joe. It just keeps getting more and more and more. Every one. I was like, gosh, can this kid throw? But Elliott stands at the top of the heap.
He does
this year for me. He is outstanding. I love how he plays. I love his moxie, and I love his ability to literally put a team on his back and say, I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to make sure that we come away with the victory. He's outstanding and has been incredible to watch for us this year. And I can't wait to watch him in college either as much as it'll sting. But.
Yes, right. Of course. I don't know. Does Vanderbilt play Northwestern in coming up next couple of years?
I hope not.
We'll have to see. I hope not too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But congratulations, Mount Carmel. Outstanding season, outstanding game as well, and their future is bright too. Dan, they've got a lot of. One thing I noticed in watching that game is they've got a lot of underclassmen that are playing on offense and on defense. So they're not going anywhere. So, just because Elliott is graduating, I don't think it gets any easier for any of the teams in the Chicago Catholic League.
No, they've got the program rolling right now. They get a freshman defensive lineman at 6'3", 335, who moves really well, and they're pretty loaded. They're pretty loaded. I don't think they have to worry about a dearth of talent in the next couple of years by losing some of these guys. Yeah, but when you lose a special player, it does take a minute to get used to what you have and trying to figure out where you're going to be, and do you have to tweak the type of team that you have year over year, and their defense, Joe, Batavia was able to move the football and score on them, so that'll be something to watch. But yeah, a lot of young guys. Those two teams, depending on what class they're in, could see a lot of each other in the future. I know they have. It's a little bit of it's got an edgy rivalry to it. It is right. A little bit. It's spicy. Which you saw at times, but it was very cool to see Jack Elliott and Mount Carmel take that title.
All right. Well, let's move on from 7A to our last game, Dan, and this is the 8A game, and it was Loyola versus York, and congrats to Loyola for a 35-14 win against York in the 8A state championship. Let's see. So I think it's the third consecutive 8A state title for Laura. Huh. How about that? For Loyola.
Freudian slip there, yeah.
Yeah, and the school's sixth overall. And I think over the last couple of games, playoff games, and really the end of the regular season, we talked about Loyola and Fitzgerald and Drew McPherson, and obviously some of their other players, but those two names just keep coming up over and over again. And sure enough, it's those two guys in this game as well who kind of took control, and even though they were down early, we've seen Loyola. They are just steady, and they just continue to work and work and work throughout the games, and eventually wear the other teams down, and end up having more big plays than the other team does, and the next thing you know is you're 20 points down to Loyola.
Yeah, and you said steady. It's a perfect word for them. You said methodical, another perfect word for them. I feel like they play the same game over and over again. They just do what they do. They don't vary. They're like Nazareth in a different way. They aren't as explosive as Naz, but they are so steady. And I have to give some kudos to their defense, Joe. I think an unsung player of the game for Loyola, Charlie Daly, linebacker.
Yes.
What they were doing, so every time Bruno Massel carried the ball, he got hit hard. And you saw him start to get up slower and slower and slower. Yep. And I know that no one's trying to I'm going to assume no one's trying to hurt anyone out there, but when the game changed the complexion when the running back for York went out. I have to find his name here. Maybe you have it, but
let's see.
Jimmy Connors.
Connors.
How could I forget that? Yeah, but when he went out, it definitely, you could see, while York has plenty of weapons to work with, you could see it kind of took the wind out of their sails a little bit. They mentioned it on the broadcast, and I felt the same way, that even though they still had opportunities, but it just was it became too much of relying on Bruno Massel and the way he was getting hit over and over and over again just took its toll. And yeah. I think that was a difference in the game. I think they literally wore York down, where they were not able to perform the way they wanted to. And then once they get a big lead, then you've got it. You make them one-dimensional. And I know that's exactly what Loyola was trying to do.
Yeah, and I think Loyola, everybody, rightfully so, they talk about some of their stars on offense like Fitzgerald and McPherson, but I don't know if we've even talked about it enough as far as some of their players on defense, Dan. We obviously Donovan Robinson was one of our dogs of the week, but Charlie Daly, one of their linebackers, he's had an excellent season, and it's kind of flown under the radar, right? Everybody's always talking about Loyola and their offense, and when you look at the course of their regular season and what they did during the regular season and then into the playoffs, their defense has showed up every week. And it's some of these guys who don't get quite as much press, don't get quite as much people talking about them, that have made that have had really good games and made big play after big play on defense to keep some of these really good teams down.
Yeah, and Tommy Ghislandi, that's another guy who doesn't get enough credit. And another guy, and I know we're talking defense here, which I think was a difference, but Braden, is it Vredenberg?
Gavin Vredenberg.
Gavin, yeah, Vredenberg. Sorry. Yeah, so, God, does he have great hands. Oh, my gosh, that kid catches everything. If it's close, he's going to catch it. Yeah. Another kind of under-the-radar, unsung stud of a player for Loyola, and they've got him, and they utilize him. Fitz did a great job of spreading the ball around. McPherson's just outstanding, making something out of nothing over and over and over again. Just too much coming from too many different places for Loyola that York couldn't compete with.
Yeah,
it's just trying to defend things. Late in the game, they haven't used Loftus. Huge fourth down play. There he is, big catch over the middle. Donovan Robinson, he was kind of quiet yesterday. I think York was staying away from him in the passing game.
I think so too.
Almost like an NFL scouting report. They just didn't want to bother with that, and so stat wise, I think he was kind of quiet, but he has an effect and changes the game just by his very presence. So Loyola's got a lot of that on top of being very well coached and doing everything right. It makes it really tough for teams to compete.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was looking at with Loyola, Dan, is that they do have, they're fairly senior heavy, right? And they're losing some really good players.
Yeah, they get a bunch.
But if you look at some of the underclassmen who have been contributing over the course of the year on offense and defense, as well as what some of their, underclassmen teams have done this year, they're just going to reload, right? I mean, it's hard to replace some of these guys like Fitzgerald or McPherson, but we've seen little glimpses of some of the players that they've got coming up and just waiting, for next year, and they're going to be okay. So they're another team I'm not going to shed any tears for.
No,
right?
No tag days for Loyola.
No tag days for Loyola. I think they're loaded with talent, and they've got some guys waiting in the wings here that contributed this year as well. But next year they're going to be right there again.
Yeah, they're a program, right? They've got great numbers, and because they've had success, they attract a lot of people who want to play for Loyola. If you're in that area, they are going to get really good football players because they know they're going to be really well coached, and they know they're going to be part of a program that competes to win year round. And so yeah, I have no doubt they're going to be just fine.
All right. So that's our recap, Dan, of the state champs. Go ahead. What do you got?
I wanted to take our little segment on the officials.
All right, go ahead. Yeah. You know what? I'm with you on this, Dan, but I'm letting you lead right now.
Right,
go ahead.
All right. So it's one of those things where two things can be true. I appreciate the officials and the hard work that they do, and the fact that they're out there, and the weather was brutal, and it's high intensity. All the teams are throttled. The throttle is buried for the intensity.
And the parents and the
parents
fans, right?
And the coaches, yes. Yeah. But they have got to find a way to train these guys better and help them understand that the flow of a football game, is really important. And it's every coach we've ever worked with, played for, whatever, has said, you could call a penalty in football on what?
Every play.
Every play, right? And
yes.
these guys took that to heart. And I understand that if you see something that you want to call it, but you've got to understand that there are going to be times that, and I saw this too, some of these guys talking to players, which I appreciate, but my goodness, that 7A game, Joe, that was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous. And I knew that there were too many calls when Mount Carmel had backups in. I think backups were in on both sides of the ball, and there was
still calling it
on every third play, and the announcers were frustrated. You could tell that by watching the games, and it was really frustrating as a fan to watch. So I want to make a plea here to our listeners. We all know people that would make really good officials. Some and guys in your 20s, girls in your 20s, that are follow football, really like football, are active, maybe fit,
somewhat physically fit.
That
would help.
That always helps, and because you've got to hustle to see certain things from the right angle. But I think everyone, even if you're not physically fit, if you know the game and you want to get involved and you have a passion for this stuff, I think they're paying better. Boy, we really the state needs officials, and they need to have a stable that they can kind of recruit from and replace from, and have just get some better training so that not every pass. If you're an offensive coordinator, Joe, and you don't have people say, oh, there's no play in the playbook for 3rd and 25. Oh, yes, there is. You throw it deep and you tell that wide receiver to flail his arms, trip over his own feet. The fans go crazy. What's going to happen? A flag's going to come out. They're going to call pass interference. Yep. Just train them on pass interference over and over and over again, so they know what it is and what it isn't. And know when it's offensive versus defensive, and know that incidental contact is incidental contact, and when the ball's in the air, both teams have a right to it, and all these things, so that you can limit some of these. Because if you're a coordinator and you don't have throw the ball that deep and tell your receiver to flail his arms, you are missing a very big play in the playbook, because these guys they were itching to throw flags yesterday. They were just itching to. And some of the personal fouls that are out there, I understand some were legit, but some looked relatively ticky-tack and to kind of kill the momentum of a game, is it's a shame, right? It's a shame to have all these stoppages of play. And I know the flip side of that as well. What are you going to not call it? And then people are upset with that, and I get that. I do get that. But these are the best 16 teams in the state. It's not time to have the officiating bog down the game between these two. Let them play a little bit.
Yeah, what I don't like, especially in these kinds of games, championship games, I don't want it to get out of hand either.
Right.
But I don't want the officials to be as big a part of a game as the players. And I just felt like that was the case. And, I'm not going to say all the games, but, a fair amount of them. I felt
everyone I watched, I felt like, oh, this is way too over officiated.
Yeah, the officials are just inserting themselves in the game, and they're, everybody's wondering what's going on, and you don't understand what the call is or why that call was made. They're talking to the players, and
they're huddling amongst themselves.
Yes,
because
And I'm going to get on the fitness aspect of it a little bit, Dan. I think that's a problem for some of the officials, and I know it's not an easy job. But one of the things that makes it not easy is that, like you said, you've got to be able to get to the right angle. You've got to get to the right spot on the field to make the right call. If you're looking at it from the 20-yard line, you're looking down to the goal line and making a call versus being on the 5-yard line where maybe you should be, to make the right call, and they can't get there because they just can't get there. That's a problem for me.
Yeah. And I did see that a couple times. I saw some bad angles with flags being thrown, 35 yards. I saw perfectly fit officials make terrible calls too.
That's true.
So
You're right.
So it while it helps for sure, I think understanding someone in their ear saying, "Hey guys, you've called 25 penalties today, so let's let it breathe a little bit. If nothing is flagrant that doesn't affect the play, maybe tell the player stop holding, or maybe tell the player don't, you're lined up offsides, or you're a centimeter offsides. You can do that, or tell the coach, this guy's doing this over and over and over again. I'm going to have to start calling it. That happens. I've had officials say it to us.
I've heard
on the sideline. Yeah. And so I appreciate that, but you've got to let these games flow a little bit, because otherwise it makes it an awful watch.
It does. It makes it really tough to watch. And, I'm not sure. I think there's a lot of things the IHSA has to review, Dan, after this year and this year's playoffs, the officiating being one, maybe some other topics that we're going to cover right? In some of our future episodes.
Soon.
Yeah.
Like next episode soon.
We will talk about some of these things. But I agree with you, and I think your call for people out there who love high school football, maybe want to get involved in one way or another. I know, and you and I both, subscribe to Max Preps. We subscribe to NFHS, who does a lot of the broadcasts. They've been calling for officials throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
They know they need them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They just need the bodies. Yeah, for sure.
They need some bodies. And I think, I think things were down over a couple of years, where people didn't want to do that or didn't officiate. But, maybe that trend is going to change here going forward. And I think it probably will. But I agree with you. We need some new blood, maybe a little bit younger. Yeah. People who love football, love high school football, to get involved here. So, we'll keep calling for that, Dan. I don't know if you and I fit the bill right now, but
no, I mean, that's why I'm defending some of the less fit guys that you see, because I'd be right in the team photo with them. So it's but some of those guys have become trainers. There were some guys that you could tell knew the rules backward and forward, and the problem is that they wanted to call every one they've ever read in the book on every single play. So that was my issue, is that just too many calls. And I believe football as a whole is over officiated.
Yeah.
So pick a level, but it really was glaring yesterday.
Yeah.
And over the weekend.
And as for the correct size shirt, that's the other thing.
I'm trying to reel us back in.
Like, come on. Do you really think you're a small? You're not. Yeah. That barely fits, buddy. Sorry, I just had to go there. Every time I watch, I was like, "What the hell?"
You're not talking to me, are you? About my shirt? I'm wearing?
Your shirt looks really good. Every time I see you, yours fits perfectly. Anyways, all right. So let's see. What were we talking about before we got into that? Dan, we were talking about state champs.
Yes. We were wrapping it up, and we wanted to say congratulations to Loyola, Mount Carmel, Nazareth Academy, semifinalists, Joliet Catholic, DePaul Prep, and Montini for their state championships over the weekend. They really made Varsity Voices special this year.
They sure did. Outstanding season to all those teams, and I've enjoyed covering every minute of it, Dan, and we've talked about a lot of it. And I appreciate the teams, the coaches, the fans for all of the Chicago Catholic League teams. Hopefully they appreciate us talking about it too. And I know they do, Dan, because some people have reached out and said how much they appreciate that. So, we've enjoyed covering it as much as they've enjoyed being a part of it.
Yeah. It's been awesome. I like to think we had an effect. I know we didn't, but that's how it helps me sleep. But
right.
But yeah, so I love doing it. It's been what we hoped, and I know it will continue. Like you said, we aren't done.
No, we're not done.
Yeah, so we're gonna find topics that we think people want to hear about, and if you have any topics that you want us to talk about, we're happy to do that. Just let us know. We're out there all over the place on social media. We'll continue to do that, and please like, follow, and subscribe. And thanks for listening.
Yes, thanks for listening, and we'll leave you with "We're not done." Everything from here on out, Dan, we're going to say we're not done. All right,
not done.
We're not done. We will be here. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening over the course of the whole year and the playoffs. It's been a lot of fun us bringing it to you, but again, we're not done. And thank you for listening, and we will talk to you soon.